The regular meeting of the Clarkston Board of Education. If you could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. McLean, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Cybers.
Here.
Mrs. Egan.
Here.
Mrs. McGinnis.
Here.
Mr. Heyer.
Here.
Mrs. Love.
Here.
Mrs. Crane.
Here.
Mr. Neat.
Here. We are all present. Item 1.3 is the public statement. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community hearing. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda items 3 and 9. Item 2 is the approval of the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. One item does require a roll call, so Mrs. McLean, if you could please call the roll again.
Mrs. Egan.
Yes.
Mrs. Love.
Yes.
Mrs. McGinnis.
Yes.
Mrs. Cybers.
Yes.
Mr. Heyer.
Yes.
Mrs. Crane.
Yes.
Mr. Neat.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. Item 3 is the first opportunity for citizens to address the board. You are given 2 opportunities to address the board. Under this item, item 3.1, you can address the board on any topic that is on tonight's agenda. And under item 9, you are welcome to address the board on any topic. When making comments, please state your name and address. Direct your comments here to the board president. Each person may speak for up to 2 minutes, and per our established procedures, the board will not respond to questions or interact with the speaker during public comment, although we may refer the matter to administration for further follow-up. Is there a sign-in sheet? Okay, nobody is signed up, so again, you have another opportunity to address the board on any topic under item 9. Item 4 is our superintendent update. Dr. Ryan.
Thank you, President E. Good evening, Clarkston community. Earlier this evening, part of the late afternoon, we had the pleasure, our Board of Education and myself, with Mr. Goodman and Danielle from AUK, who's in the audience tonight, to visit the junior high site construction, and it's amazing to see how beautiful the new field is, and that gym that's coming up right in the front yard of the old building, and seeing how simultaneously the amount of earthworks and everything going on, and road building, it's really, really amazing. Really taking it in stride as far as the overall planning and execution. You know, there's always contingencies and things you have to work with to make sure that the project's going to keep moving forward, and I have every confidence with our architecture firm G&B, our construction firm AUK, and our Clarkston crew of keeping this pushing forward. So I'm super excited to report that we're still on for that first phase being completed hopefully next July with that new gym, and then moving on to the next 2 sections of the building. So all is well. This past Friday, another update I want to share. Many of you probably were there who are listening to this evening, but we had over, I'm thinking, 16,000 people attend the Clarkston tailgate and community salute to service as part of Clarkston Community Schools. It was amazing to see combination of appreciation for those that are service from first responders to our community members that are in the military services and different branches, and being able to honor them and pull our whole community together for hot dogs, a good time on a Friday night, and a little piece of Americana with a football game under the lights. It was absolutely gorgeous, beautiful night. Everybody in attendance that I ran into had an amazing time. There was just lots of different ways for our community to kind of come together and express and behind the children of this community. And to boot, Clarkston came on top and won a comeback victory against Oxford, so it was a great night by everybody. So we also look forward in 2 weeks for another homecoming game. We're inviting again the whole community to come back for that on Friday, September 27th. Other occurrences and going on is that you're going to hear tonight about our non-homestead election that we have coming up in November. Details to be following. It's something definitely we need to continue for the support of a strong school district and a strong community. And we're all also here to update on our strategic plan this evening and our goals for this year, along with Ms. Chris Rogers, our academic service learning leader, and the projects that we have currently going on in our schools that do outreaches in our community. So if you see a theme between this, it's community building, it's community action, it's community connections, it's community honoring, very much very a staple of Clarkston Community Schools, as we are this community school. So I'm very proud to say, as we get off to school, finishing and starting our 4th week here, that we're really having an amazing start and look forward to kind of pushing forward into the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Moving to our presentation items, we have 3. The first one, as Dr. Ryan just mentioned, an overview of our academic service learning. Dr. Ryan, do you want to introduce this, please?
Yes. We have Ms. Christine Rogers, who has been a leader of the program for many years, right, and has really kind of carried and expanded it in so many different ways. You're going to hear tonight that our kids can actually use service and connections to community to learn curriculum and really kind of enrich their overall process. Ms. Rogers, you can give us some insights and some updates on what's going on in ASL.
Yes, thank you guys. I'm excited to be here. I don't get to celebrate our teachers on a grand scale a lot of times for the things they do with their kids. I'm going to start by giving you guys a gift. The Andersonville first grade last year, their project was called Project Adopts, and it was in coordination with their trip to the zoo and their science curriculum that they support and learn about endangered species. And they wanted to raise money to support the endangered species. And one of the ways they came up with it was to create handmade artwork that they could then sell, and they got some sneaky economics terms mixed in with them. So they also got some social studies. And they sold these and raised about $300, and they were able to present the check to the zoo when they took their field trip. So I want to pass those out now. Everyone gets one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's cute.
And they're the Eagles, so they picked Eagles. But they supported all the different endangered species.
Thank you so much.
All right, as Sean was saying, this is my 7th year as the coordinator, and we've done a lot. So I'm here, first of all, to celebrate. I even have a video at the end, if I have time, that will review all 51 of our projects from last year. But also, some of you are more new to the board, and it will be kind of either a refresher or an introduction to what we do. You can see the pictures of the kids. They're all happy. The bottom left one was 1st and 2nd graders at Pine Knob. They got donated teddy bears. Their families donated teddy bears, and then they wrote messages of love, and those were delivered to Silver Maples Senior Center, and there is a picture later of some of the recipients. The top corner was a Jay's chemo bag. It is the Bailey Lake school-wide project where every grade level supports people going through cancer. On the top left hand or the right hand side is Scamp Superheroes. I love that picture. That is done at Pine Knob Elementary, and then the lower right hand corner is a project that the art classes at Clarkston L do to support a domesticated animal refuge in Oxford. All right, what is service learning? This was the board-approved mission statement that we did in 2007, and it, at its heart, encapsulates what we do. We take what we learn in the classroom. It's, as teachers, what we are required to teach, but we find ways to make it more engaging for the students, and we connect it to the community. I love the way this is written, but I know that I'm part of the strategic planning committee, and we're going through and kind of restructuring or rewriting what we've done, and I would like mine to align more with that. So I'm hoping to maybe bring one back to you either in the fall or even in the spring, just so that the wording's the same and that we can all be on the same page. It's been 17 years. I mean, it's time. All right, so this is what we did last year. We had 51 projects. That's our record. I love it. You can see I love the big number. Every single elementary school child in Clarkston, K-12 through 5th grade, or sorry, K-5 through 5th grade did a project. Every kid at Sashabaw did a project. It does get harder when we get into the other secondary buildings, but 4,500 of our kids experienced a project. And the way that I'm looking at it is if a child comes into Clarkston Elementary Schools and does a Young Fives program, does a kindergarten program, does a first grade, by the time they get to me as a 10th grade teacher, they will have done at least 9 projects. They will have had 9 authentic experiences working in the classroom with the community. I know some other districts around the area have a required service hours, but I think ours is more embedded. It isn't something they have to do to graduate, it's just something we do in our classes. So we're teaching the kids that they not only have the skills, but also giving them the connections. Oh, I worked with SCAMP. Oh, I worked with the Blue Heron. So they know these things growing up, and we are just creating better kids who just know how they can help. I do 7 workshops a year. We have a lot of different levels of them, so we train 72 teachers. Some of those are repeat teachers, some are new to the program, and we had over 60 community partners just last year that we worked with. The benefits scientifically of ASL, it enriches and deepens classroom learning. It's authentic. The kids want to do it. They want to learn the skills so that they can show off to a different audience. It obviously promotes community involvement. It's a win-win for the schools, especially working with seniors. You know, when we're asking them to vote for the schools, well, they worked with kids. They've seen kids. They've done all these things. So it just promotes community in our classrooms, but also our kids in the community. And then it also fosters empathy and understanding with the different parts of our community. We work with first responders. We work with people who maybe need help through Lighthouse, and our kids are exposed to all these ways that they can help. So what do we do? It is an extensive thing. It isn't just a project. That's what makes ASL different, is that it isn't just something that we come up with on a Friday afternoon when it's raining. It is thought out, it is planned. And what you see in front of you here was Ann Duffy. They do a project in first grade. It's called the ABC books. And the first graders spend all year learning to write, learning to spell. And then their wrap-up project at the end is they take all of their learning and they make coloring books with each letter. A is for apple or B is for bear. And they create their own coloring books that they give to the incoming kindergartners at Independence. That project has grown, and we now do it at Andersonville as well. So this is how can we as readers, as leaders, pass on our knowledge. We also do the learning. It is curricular. This is an example of a 4th grade Me Gusta book, which is I like, and the inner pages are what I don't like. And the teacher actually calls it the gross books, because the kids get to decide what they don't like, and they get to draw pictures. So instead of creating copies, they're actually writing in Spanish. And then the Spanish teachers take it to the younger kids and really start to inspire that Spanish is fun. Let's learn Spanish, so that the younger kids get inspired that when they become 4th graders, they get to do the same thing. So this is curricular. It's part of her unit about what they like, what they don't like, and they're taking those skills and they're translating it into teaching younger children. And then one major part about ASL, my favorite part, is the reflection, is the kids get a chance to think about what they did. We don't just move on, we don't just call it done, we don't just give them a test, but we give them a chance at least 3 times throughout the project to think about how they're helping, what they can do, what it means to them, what it means to other people. And you can see that this is a pretty good example. I think this is from last year, maybe 2 years ago, but I just love how it says exactly what we're trying to say. At North Sashaba, where they worked with Children's Hospital. They made bags for kids who are being treated for illness in the hospital. When they're getting their treatments, they're there, they're bored. And every grade level at Sashaba added something to the bag so the kids have busy bags while they're there. And then this is what the young person wrote about, how good it feels to help. And you know, some of our kids in our district get they receive a lot of the help. They are recipients from different things, and giving everyone, whether they're kids who are at Bailey Lake or kids that are at North Sash or kids that are at Clarkston High School, everyone gets the same chance to feel good about helping and learn how to do it. Part of our 60 community groups, senior centers, we worked with 4 or 5 different ones. The elementaries are a lot of recipients for our secondary projects. We have a lot of teaching going on down there. The drama class at Sashaba actually did a red, yellow, blue zones of, or is it green? Zones of regulation, and the drama kids acted it out, and they partnered with Springfield Plains and the SEL person there to show videos so kids could see what red looks like, what yellow looks like. We had two of the most successful blood drives in the state of Michigan. One was run by second graders at Independence, and the other was run by second and fifth graders at Springfield Plains. But if you look at the top blood donorship producing ones in the state of Michigan, we had two of the top. We had a new partnership with Blue Heron Headwaters Conservancy, and we helped save some turtles. That's a great new partnership. The Family Farm, every year we partner with them. And then SCAMP. I think we had a record number of SCAMP projects this year. You can see the key components if you come to a workshop, if you want to follow up with me, but it's a project. It isn't a throwaway activity. We put some planning, we put some preparation, action, and the reflection. And then we do pause to celebrate. We want these kids to see what they've done and to see their power to make change in the world. This would be the video. Do we have time for it? All right. You may need to click on the picture for me. This is a quick overview of all 51 of our projects. It's arranged by school. It's pretty cute. think if you click back on the slideshow, I got one more slide for you guys, and then I'll be done. All right, I invite all of you to come to a workshop. They really pick up, or leave the teachers alone during September, but we start picking up at the end of October and throughout November. We have introductory ones for new teachers. We have a 201 where we actually go out into the community and walk the walk, walk the talk, talk the walk. But we go out and we serve with one of our partners so that they're not always helping us do stuff. We're actually there to help them. 301 is an advanced one. We bring in like how can we get technology. We have a very good relationship with the technology department where we are taking things digitally. We're doing things to show off our technology skills, and there's a curriculum for technology that we've built in. And then now we're taking a 401. It's a brand new one. I'm very excited about this workshop. We want to start teacher labs. We want teachers like Ann Duffy at Independence, Kelly Burton at Sashaba to open their classrooms up and show other teachers. They can come in and say, all right, this is how I'm teaching. This is what it looks like. This is how it happens. This is how we do it. So I'm very excited about that. But we'd love to have you come to any of them, participate with us, observe, and again, anytime that there's a project out there, I'd love for all of you to come and participate with us. So you can tell I love this stuff. If you have any questions, please contact me, and thank you for your time.
Anybody have any questions or anything they want to add? Mrs. McGinnis?
I'll just say, after being on the board for 17 years, I'm very familiar with our district's leadership and service learning area brought to the district by Renee Weaver-Wright and Dr. Reschke. I really like how every building is engaged and every grade level is engaged to do what it is that they know how to do to the people that they reach out to. And I can only imagine that the people out in our community love to have the children care about what they're doing, whether it's the little placemats I saw that one classroom made, or helping elderly people with technology. I know that's one from in the past. I don't know if there was one this year. And I love the endangered species thing. I love the work that our students do to give to us board. I have on my nightstand many other things that I've gotten over the years. So please tell our students how much we appreciate the work they're doing, not only to honor the work that they're learning, but the way they're reaching out to other people.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. The scope of programming is very, very impressive, not to mention just the raw numbers. So thanks a lot for all your efforts as well. Our next presentation, item 5.2, a strategic plan update. Our goals for our current strategic plan, 2024-2025. Mrs. Mahoney, Mrs. Puzio, or Dr. Ryan, do you want to? We'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Good evening. Stacy and I are excited to project our goals and what we're focusing on this year. This is the last year for our current strategic plan, and so I just end tonight's presentation with just I think a snapshot of what we're stepping into next when we look at our future strategic plan. So we always begin with our mission. This has really set the stage in terms of our focus throughout these past, this is our 6th year. So Clarkston Community Schools creates a learning environment where students, staff, and families, this is a beautiful triangle that we always emphasize, that we're reaching our students, our staff, and our families with being challenged, being healthy, engaged, feeling safe, and supported. In our vision, this is what we strive for, this is what we reach for each and every day, and that is that Clarkston Community Schools students are well prepared for a future that excites them, and they believe that they can achieve their dreams. And so our current strategic plan is made up of 4 pillars. These are intentionally color-coded. Whole person development, this is all about well-being, not only again for students, but it is for our staff as well as our community. Foundational and academic skills, this is where I tend to live the most in terms of academic achievement. Student-focused learning, looking at each student as an individual in terms of their assets and what they bring to the classroom each and every day, and then future pathways, what students are interested in, how we prepare them beyond high school. We have 10 goals within each pillar, and so at the end of this year, we're going to be taking a strong look at what have we completed and what still has to be looked at. Are we going to keep it? So this is year 6. Originally it was a 5-year plan, but due to COVID, we did extend it 1 year. And so our 2 areas of focus this year, both for elementary and secondary, are our multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, as well as everything we're doing for social emotional learning, SEL. So I'm going to lean into the MTSS portion, and Stacy will lead the SEL. So we've divided it into elementary and secondary. So at the elementary level, we've had such good progress and work last year that we're continuing, plus we've refined and I think renewed some pieces within our MTSS framework. So we are focusing on Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction within the classroom. And so Tier 1 is classroom instruction delivered by a teacher each and every day for every child. And our goal is that at least, research says, 80% of our students are successful with classroom Tier 1 instruction. But again, not all students are successful. We're hoping for less than 20%. And so that is Tier 2. What do we do for a second hit of instruction with our kids? And so sometimes that is taught by our teacher within the classroom with small groups, or sometimes they are pulled out by an interventionist to receive that second hit of instruction. Tier 1 is heavily supported by our coaches, both literacy and math. They're also supported by our subject area coordinators in all content areas. And Stacy will even speak to, we are supported by our SEL. We moved Nicole Cruz to be a subject area coordinator, leading the charge around social emotional learning for our teachers. Our Tier 2 are supported also by coaches with a strong lead with our interventionists, and including we are so gifted to have classroom aides as well. Second bullet there, implementing consistent professional learning communities. We've worked with Dr. Osterman really to keep our focus strong on who we teach, what we teach, and how we teach. Last year, we took a strong stance on professional learning communities at the elementary level. Our teachers are meeting at least once a week as a team. And so again, defining who we teach is our audience. And so really focusing in on our students and how they're performing and what their needs are. Looking at what we teach, that's our curriculum. And we have a very robust curriculum guide, pacing guide that our teachers engage so they know what is expected to be taught when. And then of course our how is our instructional practice is how do we teach science, how do we teach literacy to the very best effective practices that we put in front of our kids each and every day. We've revised our elementary MTS handbook. So last year was our first launch with the handbook, and so we did take a lot of feedback in terms of what did we want to tweak and add to the handbook. And so we really looked at roles of a social worker. We included that. We defined and revised our PLC template, and so teachers are documenting the conversations that are occurring in PLCs. And we've also provided clarity for purposes of specialized meetings. This is a big one, this next bullet, in terms of aligning academic support, skill gap instruction, opportunities for enrichment, and then of course using assessments to determine individual needs. In terms of aligning academic support, we've worked, I think, very collaboratively with our building principals to really define a schedule as to when interventions are going to occur. When do we pull kids for math, literacy, special education, English as a second language? There's so many pieces to the puzzle, and so we really want to do right by kids to think about when we do pull kids. And then how decisions are made. And so we've asked for a meeting. We're calling it an intervention review cycle meeting. And so this is where teams come together to really look at the needs of our students and think about, is Tier 2 going to be serviced with a pocket of our students with teachers? who's going to be pulled for an intervention and for how long. And then also looking at how our aides support our kids too. Skill gap instruction, I'm excited that our current resource, Bridges for Math, revised a screener, and so we're utilizing this at the beginning of every unit, and this is going to give teachers a read as to how kids are prepared for that unit. So again, it gives us good data in terms of, again, Tier 1, Tier 2 instruction, as well as our advanced learners. And I know this is an area that we really need to think through and to grow, is we do have students in our classrooms that are above and beyond and really showing special talents in areas of content. And so we want to reach those and provide enrichment for those students. And again, always using assessments to drive our decisions, and a variety of assessments using formative and summative assessments. Literacy Essentials of Oakland. This was originally called LEO, and it is through Oakland Schools, and this is our 3rd year. They've changed the acronym a little bit to CCI, which is Cultivating Continuous Improvement. And so we recently met, a few of us, just last week, in terms of what this year can look like for Clarkston as well as for Oakland County. But in year 1, we did focus on literacy, and we really took a strong focus on word study. Our 2nd year, this was last year, we brought in some math leaders, and our 2nd year was really focusing on small groups in terms of how we pull small groups within the classroom around literacy and math. And then this year, we are taking a deep dive into the essential practices for literacy and math. And this is going to be led by Oakland Schools. I think there's more districts that have become involved. And so I think through a lot of collaboration, we're going to learn a lot and become even more effective within our learning and these essential practices. So literacy is going to be focusing in on reading materials and making sure there's an abundance for our students, word knowledge, as well as comprehension. In our math, for the essential practices, we'll be zooming in on, do we create an environment that is engaging in mathematics and fact fluency, and do our students see themselves as mathematicians? Career-focused experiences, Zello, and looking at interests and strengths. We have a new leader leading this charge. This is Nancy Distelrath. And she's excited and has really, I think, stepped in strong. And so we really want to continue the work that we have launched with career-focused experiences. We do partner with Michigan Department of Education as well as Oakland Schools, and we are asked to create 2 events within 5 areas of the Department of Labor. And so advanced manufacturing, this is K-12, health, construction, industrial technology, as well as energy. And so Nancy Distelrath is already in full swing of creating these 2 events for our students to participate. Zello, this is an online gaming where kids interact, and again, they just are introduced to multiple careers and exposure, and so we'll continue that work. We have career speakers that we're going to continue, where classes sign up. We have shoe designers, veterinarians, members from our fire department, construction workers, and so they come in, and these are community members just leading experiences and what careers look like for our elementary kids. And then I think it's really important that we connect with literacy in terms of read-alouds and how we can lift up careers and build language around what people do in our world around us. So lots to focus in on MTSS with the elementary. Stacy.
Good evening. So for SEL, social emotional learning at the elementary level, first in the classroom, what does that look like? And so last year, Nicole Cruz, who is now our SEL coordinator, as Nancy indicated, started this 4 key practices that are embedded into our pacing guide and a part of our environment so that students have an emotional check-in. It's meant to be a very quick, how are you doing, 1 to 6, happy, sad. It could be a lot of different things, but some way that gives an indication to the teachers and staff of how kiddos are doing. Movement opportunities, we recognize the need for movement the impact that it has on our kiddos' brains to be able to engage in the learning and to be able to get some of the wiggles out that they might need to engage. Safe spot access. We are having materials for each of our classrooms that we've had a space in every place, including our co-curricular classrooms, that if a kiddo needs some time to decompress, they have a safe spot that they can go. It is regulated in the sense that they are taught how to use it, what is the purpose of it, and then when they're ready, they can come back into the classroom, or it's already in the classroom, but come back into the learning environment. Sometimes they're able to just do that on their own. Sometimes they need a teacher to help them out with that. Sometimes a dog has helped a kiddo to come back into the classroom. And then some mindfulness and quiet time, and just having that time to also just breathe and take that moment to decompress and be quiet. Some of our schools even have this intentionally after recess and lunch, which can be a very loud and boisterous time, and just to be able to recenter themselves to come back into the classroom. This year, we also then had Dr. Stephanie Grant. She's a psychologist. She came in for our opening week for all of our elementary staff and talked about regulation strategies and what does that look like? What's happening in a kiddo's brain if they're excited or something is happening and they're having a response, and then how do they decompress? And what are some of the things that we as the adults can do to help recognize that in our kiddos, both at the classroom level as well as support staff beyond that. And so professional learning for all of our staff, it's one of those things that we had such good outcome that we're looking to bring her back into the district because of the impact that she's had in language and thinking about how we can work with our students. When we think about SEL in the building, for each of our 7 buildings, we have increased or maintained that SEL support. So every single elementary building now has at least 2 to 3 people who are focused solely on SEL, whether it's an SEL interventionist or a social worker. So we have increased support across the district over the years to really support both and maintain that SEL support, both at tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So when we think about tier 1, what's happening in the classroom, what are the supports that we can put into place? Tier 2, how can our support staff work with our teachers to help those students who might need a little bit more support? And then tier 3, some of that one-on-one that our kiddos just need some really targeted, intentional support of how to help with regulation. You heard Christine Rogers talk about the zones of regulation. How do they incorporate some of those pieces? We're also looking at consistent crisis response protocols. We are looking at that across all 7 elementaries. What are the same, what's different? We're even meeting this week with Nicole Cruz along with Stacy Theophilus and Katie LeMay, as well as Beth Clark, and examining how are we consistent, how can we make sure that we're always responding in the best way that we can. And we're also now starting to use EduClimber to collect and analyze data. So Nicole Cruz has worked this summer to really work with each of our support staffs in how do we collect some data that allows us to understand where the needs are and how to respond. So if we then have an MTSS part of that process, a student support meeting, and we're looking and examining what are the needs of a student, we have some data to be able to examine that. So we have implemented that this year. Student safety continues to be an important piece for us. Having those threat and risk assessments, having that consistency of documentation. We do have 2 trainers in the district, and we're always looking. We have new staff, whether it's social workers or Beth Clark, and we've even are going to include our police liaisons in that learning, and so that we have that consistency across the district. We're also examining another process through Oakland Schools called Prepare, that is about how to respond in a crisis and beyond a crisis, and so we're looking to have a team go through that learning as well. We continue with the Handle with Care. That is a statewide program that if any kiddo is a witness or a part of any police situation, we receive notification, and all it says is Handle with Care. It gives us the child's name, where they're in the school and that go specifically to us. And it just allows us to know that we just need to be aware that if something's happening, we just need to handle with care. We're not given any information about what that is. But if a student then chooses to share that with us, then we would go through the means of addressing that in the way that we could do that. And then community supports. You've heard Christine talk about the community, and as Dr. Ryan said, this is a theme, is that community support. So we are continuing that partnership with Easter Seals. Easter Seals continues to help us out in just troubleshooting different things. I was on the phone with them on Friday for a situation, and it's nice that we have that kind of contact that I can make a phone call and say, hey, could you help me out, and work through that. We're continuing to expand that LaFontaine pack of dogs. We have Giggles, who is now at Clarkston, who just started in the last couple of weeks. And so we're now in the process of looking for Bailey Lake to grow that and continue to do that really good work. Having that parent and family engagement, Dee Smith has been working really diligently, and especially at Pine Knob is where we have her house, is to really work with having parent engagement, has engaged in different things through Kaya as well as a bookmobile to help bring access to our students right in their neighborhoods and really making intentional things for them for that. And then expanding the supports for holiday and basic needs. We already have Shoes for Kids in the works. That's going to be on Saturday, November 9th, and we're already starting that process for that. I had a community group contact me last week that said, we've met and this is how we're going to be ready to support for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we'll continue to build that. We have helped a lot of different people across the years, and I'm thankful for the partnership that we have with different community groups and entities who are they'll step forward and say, how can we help and what can we do? So we'll continue to do that.
Excited to share now our focus for secondary around MTSS to implement and revise the MTSS framework. And so I'm just super excited to speak to secondary. We started the work last year, and I think the pieces that we have in motion, I really want to just express the synergy that I'm seeing. There's so many leaders involved, and we're working together, and I do believe that we'll see good results because of this year. So our focus on Tier 1 instruction, and so last year we did start the 4 initiatives. This was FAME, Formative Assessment of Michigan Educators, Reading Apprenticeship, Building Thinking Classrooms, and our Restorative Practice work. And so these are teacher leaders leading the work on these 4 initiatives, and every secondary building has divided their staff into one of these 4, and so they do attend and they learn together, and then they implement within the classrooms. And this has grown, and we continue to want to focus in these 4 areas this year as well. This year we have started course PLCs, and recognizing that every teacher does teach multiple courses within the day, we've asked teachers to select one content, and so they are meeting as a professional learning community. Tied to that, we are asking that all teachers complete 2 data cycles this year at the secondary level. This is 1 per semester. I think some teachers probably already have this into their practice, and yet some, this will be brand new. But this will be taught by our department chairs, and it will happen within course PLCs. And so again, that's another component of leadership, is that we've elevated the department chair to work alongside with our building principals as well as our subject area coordinators to lead that work around data cycles. So I do believe, because of the collaboration and the fact that we're focusing on what does the data say, what goal do we want to, I think, elevate based on the data, what instruction do we want to put in place based on that, and then let's assess again to see how our kids did, and then it just completes again the cycle again. But again, that will be led by our department chairs. We do have a professional learning calendar, and so on those Fridays, part of them, usually morning, will be led by our subject area coordinators. We have finalized curriculum mapping, and that is that we can hand any new teacher, any teacher, a document, and that is this is what we teach and this is when we teach. We're going to start leaning into common assessments. We know that we have common assessment when it comes to a semester exam, a final exam, and again, I think some teachers have it in place in terms throughout the year, but we're going to take a stronger push in terms of common assessments, and what does that look like? And so we'll start with the subject area coordinators who will lead the charge with their teachers. And again, this can look very different when it comes to content. And so I'm excited to see, I think, a result of that area of focus. And then we're leaning into mind frames. And mind frames is a highly researched, I think, just a way of thinking when it comes to student success. There are 10, and so this year we're going to lean into 5. These will be, I guess, taught throughout the year on our professional learning days. And so our subject area coordinators are going to lean into the mind frames of a teacher and a student. And then our principals are leaning into the mind frames in regards to the organization. And so in August, when we had our professional learning, we really launched the whole mindset of a professional learning community and what that meant to our organization in terms of we work better together. We don't work as well in isolation, and our principals led that charge. In terms of a teacher, how important it is to collaborate with each other, and then as a student, do we really think about how our students collaborate with their peers as well, I think, to advance learning. And so that was the August mindset. Our next professional learning day is October 11th, and we'll be leaning into our second mind frame, hoping to complete 5 this year and then 5 the next. I want to elevate the professional learning led by principals. I think, including Susie Miller, I'm going to say all 5 principals are on board when it comes to MTSS, and we're even leaning into mini labs. And so what does that mean? That means that teachers start observing teachers. If they've put a schedule together at the high school, I know Gary has worked hard with saying, hey, there's a really cool FAME lesson going on second hour in Ling Englehart's classroom. And so then teachers can sign up if they have a conference hour to go see Lynn, and they can collaborate. And so that kind of started last year, and I think that's evolving even more within the buildings, and so I think that's a great partnership as well. Professional learning led by our instructional coaches. We have 2, Laura Mahler and Sean Wood, and they led the charge in terms of a lot of what I've said here, but they're going to be leading teacher labs as well as administrative labs. Last year, we leaned into administrative labs with building principals. This year, we're going to lean into administrative labs with our assistant principals as well as our deans in the secondary buildings. So they're in evaluating teachers. I think they need to be equipped with good instructional practices as well, so I'm excited to bring them on board. We want to finalize a handbook. We have a rough draft currently, and so we continue to meet and to explore, I think, what does Tier 2 and Tier 3 look like at the secondary level? I think it's very easy to speak at the elementary, but we really want to think about, do teachers know how to pull a small group within a classroom at the secondary level? We know we have 2 interventionists at Sashbaum Middle School. I know that's a pull, but what else could that look like, especially at the junior high and the high school with our struggling learners, as well as Tier 3 one-on-one. And I know that we have tutoring labs after school, but I think there's other things to examine within that framework. And then we want to continue the work around career readiness to enhance our system. I did meet with Sheila Witkowski. She is leading the charge when it comes to career readiness. And I think she expressed to me she wants to repeat a lot of the work in place in terms of the EDPs, and that is that every student has an educational development plan that advises them, I think, in terms of their interests, their skill sets, their strengths, and how they can even schedule, I think, courses around their, who they are. National Career Development Month, she took a really, I think, fun, experience with that's in November. She wants to add a career fair in November. We held our first no degree required at RHS last year. This is for students that are not necessarily pursuing a formal education and what career paths are available to them. Looking at job fairs, these are jobs that are ready to hire that students can look and decide. She took kids down to the American Auto Show. This coming year, she wants to take them to Lansing for a baseball career day. And this is not just to become a professional baseball player. She said this is about what a statistician looks like. What does it mean to manage a team and to be a marketer in the arena of sports? And so I thought that was very interesting. She has a guest speaker coming in. He is the CTE director with the Department of Education, and he is a Clarkston graduate. And so his name is Brian Piles, and so we're excited to bring him back just to speak. She also is starting a career club at the high school. And this is where kids will come together, I think, to really dive into career exploration, job searching, and the skills that are required, as well as what does it mean to be employable and looking at the skills. So she's excited, and again, she's working with Nancy Distelrath, I think, to look at the whole K-12 initiative. So good things are happening when it comes to career.
So for secondary, you'll see a lot of similarities because it's important for us to have a K-12 system of support for our students so that it is seamless for that. For SEL in the classroom, again, we're going to look at those regulation strategies. Dr. Stephanie Grant that we had at the elementary, it felt so powerful that we thought we need to really bring this back for secondary as well. And so we're going to work with her on that she has a broad experience, that it's not just with littles but also with bigger kids. And so how can we have real adolescent teen focused strategies for regulation for our students as well. For SEL in the building, we're continuing the restorative practices and having the professional learning. It's part of the 4 initiatives that Nancy talked about with the MTSS process. And so how do we continue to have that? We're also joining a part of a restorative practice collaborative in Oakland County, and that helps to build connections across the county of what is happening, how do people use this, and us being able to also share how we're utilizing restorative practices. Also looking at the positive behavior support, we have positive behavior interventionists at Sashabaw Middle and Clarkston Junior High, and so continuing to develop their learning and their understanding of how to continue to grow that in both of those buildings. They work collaboratively together, and they're bringing in their deans as well to have a conversation about how can we grow this and again have that seamless interaction with our students. Student safety, the same thing, threat and risk assessments, being consistent with that. It's always with at least 2 to 3 people. It's never done in isolation because of the importance in how we want to be so thorough in what we're doing. And again, bringing in the police liaisons along with that handle with care. We have a process in place. And so again, continuing that partnership with Easter Seals, again, they are co-located in all 4 of our secondary buildings. And so we are continuing that. We've even had to expand the number of days so that we could support our students in that. Looking to expand the LaFontaine Pack of Dogs again at Sashabaw Middle is the next school to bring a dog in. And then again, expanding those supports that still supports our students at the high school and junior high and middle school levels as well.
So I did want to speak a little bit to our next strategic plan, which will be launched the fall of next year and take us through 2030. We do have a strategic plan planning team. It's, I think, 50+ members. It's made up of central office, building administrators, teachers, our subject area coordinators, coaches, specialized programs, special education, technology, Board of Education, parents, as well as community members. And so we'll be engaging with this team throughout this year as we look at our new strategic plan. And so I just looked at 2024. This would be September through December. We're going to analyze our spring feedback from our large team that we engaged. We did start in the spring in terms of really looking at our current strategic plan and what's working, what's not, what do we want to keep, what do we want to let go. We also put a community survey out, and so we've partnered with Dr. John Good from Oakland Schools, and he will be coming to do a board workshop as well as a presentation here on October 14th, just to kind of speak to what our community is saying in regards to the survey, and that's going to lead us strong, again, in looking at, I think, our next pillars and goals within those pillars. And so by the end of December, we really want to finalize that mission and vision as well as determine pillars and goals. And then as January creeps around, 2025, once we have that established, we can start building strategies within those pillars and goals. Of course, we want to keep you, I think, updated throughout the whole process, but a final approval, and then that's going to allow us to build a Gantt chart of what do we want to do when throughout the next 5 years. It's exciting. I love our current strategic plan and what it's done for us, and I know our next one can do just as good. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the board?
I would just say
Mr.
I'm
Iyer?
excited for the new pass at the strategic plan too. I think what we have has served us very well, and I think it's really time to amp it up. And I'm excited for the next 5 years.
Mrs. McGinnis?
Thank you, President Need. My question is, at the elementary level, how are students recognized who need SEL services or interventions?
How are they recognized?
Yes.
Like, I think that there's a lot of different things. If we recognize that there's behaviors that maybe they're having a hard time managing, being in the classroom, outbursts sometimes that happens, not being able to interact well with peers. It might be more of support of how do I be a good friend, and sometimes understanding our own emotions and looking at that. So it's our kiddos express, and sometimes, it's communication. Behavior is communication for us.
So would it be part of a team evaluation of a student's needs, for example? Would that be how it might be brought forward?
So again, looking at tiers, different tiers, right, and recognizing that sometimes maybe it's just something I'm trying to make sense of my own self, and I would just need some supports, perhaps with a SEL interventionist or a social worker, just a group setting. Let's think about zones of regulation, understanding that when my body is feeling like this, maybe I feel it in my stomach, maybe I feel it in my head, and I'm recognizing that my body's telling me that I'm feeling something. So it's working with our kiddos in how do I recognize that, and how do I utilize some of the skills of breathing techniques? How do I recognize that I can calm myself down and do that? Perhaps I can go and fidget with something and recognize that my body needs some of that movement. So it's helping. It could be very just support every couple times. Maybe it's just a check-in. Hey, how are you doing?
So I'm not sure I'm asking the question.
Sorry.
So I can understand the methodologies that might be used to bring comfort to a student who is experiencing difficulties. So is it the teacher that calls you or the interventionist in your building to say that I have a child in my classroom I think needs to be observed, for example? Help me if I'm not saying it right.
Yeah.
And I think needs services within the spectrum of a multi-tiered system.
Yes.
Is that the approach of how a student would be recognized for services?
What I think I hear you saying, like, it's more elevated than what we would typically have. So
Right, because the services are not being rendered by the teacher in the classroom as the normal process of the classroom, right? It's another person coming in and intervening.
It could be. So in the classroom for Tier 1, maybe it is the teacher recognizing just as a whole class, this is what we need for movement. We need some of that quiet time, some of those key practices that they've put into place. When it gets to be a little bit more, it could be that the interventionist or social worker is partnering with the teacher. Here are some strategies that you might utilize, and or a student also could come out and work in small groups with the interventionist, and so they would do that. If it became more, it could be more of an observation. So Nicole Cruz has been really good about going in as an outside person from the outside of the building. She's within the district, but to go in and help observe, work and collaborate with the social workers and the SEL interventionists to determine what other needs might be put into place. Does that help?
Yep.
All right.
I'm just trying to understand. So I understand the concept of the systems that we have in place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to understand how are they put to task, engaged with our students. Not just the framework of what we have available, and the multi-tiered systems of approaches. I'm trying to understand, how is it activated? How does any child, multiple children, a classroom of students who have some social emotional needs get the services of the outline that you've demonstrated that we have in place?
Very similar to the MTSS process. If there is a need, that they even need to come to a team. So they would also come to that student support meeting. That's similar if a teacher had concerns about literacy or math, having conversations. What are some strategies that we can put into place? What are some of the interventions that we would want to put into place, both at the teacher within the classroom, as well as if they were to be pulled out and to work with the SEL interventionist or the social worker. It might be saying we need to have a check-in. We also need to have some groups, and we're going to have some conversations about what that looks like in the classroom. So it's a part of that team. They have their PLC team to also be able to connect with one another. What are some other strategies that we could use? Having Nicole Cruz as a coach and now our coordinator, and helping to even support that when it's maybe we feel like we've really looked at a lot of different things. What are some other pieces that we could put into place? And this is all without any special ed per se, right? This is all before any of that, and having that as a process, and again, looking at that data.
Anything else from the board? Okay, well, I echo Mr. Ayer's comments. We're kind of excited as to where we've come from and looking to wrap up the current, and then looking forward to planning and implementing the next 5 years. So thank you very much, both of you.
I like the format. It's not a big bind.
Our final presentation is on the non-homestead election for this November. Dr. Ryan?
Sal's going to come up and give us kind of a rundown both on our timeline and our strategies to make sure our community is fully understanding and ready to help support us in this really important election.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. So we have a ballot proposal that all of you approved back at our August meeting. This is a routine thing and has been since the mid-90s with the passing of Proposal A. But on November 5th, the Clarkston Community Schools will ask voters to approve a non-homestead operating millage renewal, allowing the district to continue to levy 18 mills on non-homestead property, which includes businesses, commercial, and rental property. It's important to note that the renewal does not affect the taxes of houses in which people live. It is only levied again on commercial, industrial, second homes, and rental properties. Now, with the non-homestead, one of the biggest issues that a district has is making sure that the voters truly understand what it means. It's not simple, it's not cut and dry, and so our job as a district is to inform our community so they can make the decision that is best for them and their families. And so we have several different ways that we're getting the word out. I'll go over some of those with you tonight, but just important to note the quick facts that we are using throughout this informational campaign. First is making sure that individuals know how the funds are being used. Very different from a bond. With these funds, they go directly to our general operating budget, and so that means it does impact our student programs, our staffing, and the services throughout the district. Some of the background behind it, as mentioned before, this has been supported by Clarkston voters since the mid-90s. This is required by the state, so we receive our full per pupil funding, and it does impact all of our students and staff. The financial facts is that it is expected to be approximately $10 million in 2026, and that is an annual amount. The 18 million levy is a tax max. That means that we can never go above that amount. Now, with this proposal, we are asking for a larger sum, which is at 25.845 mils. We cannot take all of that. We can only take the 18 mils, and this is giving us that headly opportunity if in fact the numbers change based on all of the information processed through the business office and through the state as far as whether or not the levy that we are currently taking falls below, and that is when we're able to use that surplus. And that is probably the most difficult part to explain to individuals, because it doesn't really make sense until you get deeper into all of that information. And also just important to remind everyone that this is a renewal, this is not a new tax. And the properties that are affected, once again, businesses, second homes, rental properties, not primary residence or agriculture. So there are some important dates, and over the past several years, there's been a change in what these dates really mean to us. Once upon a time, when we got to, say, mid-October, was when things really started to ramp up because the majority of our voters were going to the polls on Election Day. For these past several years, we have had an extreme uptick in our absentee voting, and therefore, things really get rolling for us at the end of September. Legally, those absentee voter ballots must be available by September 26th, and that is really when everything begins for us. So between September 26th and November 4th, you can go in person, or you can in-person absentee voting, or you can absentee vote and mail it in. I will come back again in October to give another brief presentation, making sure that our community knows everything about this non-homestead millage. On the 21st of October, that's the voter registration deadline by mail or email. The 26th of October through the 3rd is an early voting window. There are only specific locations that are available on our website to where you can go for your early voting. Absentee ballot requests, that deadline is November 1st. November 4th, absentee ballot request deadlines are in person. November 5th, in-person voter registration deadline, which is actually Election Day, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now, our website has all of this information and a link to the Voter Information Center. This is just a quick glimpse at the website. For the sake of time, I will not click in and show you a little tour of everything, but what you'll find there is details behind the proposal, the exact ballot language, voting information taking you directly to the state's website to help individuals who are looking to register to vote, apply for absentee voting, or learn more about early voting, and just make sure that they get to the polls at the right time on November 5th. In addition, we have several different print and electronic materials that are currently made and being printed and will be distributed. This will be through email. It will go to all of our community through the Clarkston calendar, through our social media channels. We'll be working on an informational video that we can use in several different platforms. Again, our website will be the hub with all of the information, including an FAQ. So if there are frequently asked questions that we're getting, a lot of those we're able to anticipate because this is not something new for us. And all of those are already available. If new questions come in, we will certainly get those answers and have that there, having that one-stop shop for our voters. And really, there's this piece of community engagement that all of us are a part of. We want to make sure that the talking points that I've shared with you today are available to all of our staff members, to all of you, so everyone knows all the details behind what this really means for our community. So again, there'll be social media posts, different school events where we are available. For instance, last week at the tailgate, while people at the table were a little bit more interested in the pom-poms and the tattoos, there was information available regarding the non-homestead millage. We'll certainly be working with our parent advisory team, staff meetings, sending out monthly e-blasts, and working with community groups like our Clarkston Foundation, the Chamber of Commerce, the Optimist, Rotary, our Senior Center, reaching out to our Gold Card members and making sure that the information is getting out in the Clarkston News and the Oakland Press. It's certainly the most difficult piece is to get those individuals who do not have students in the building, and that is where we really try to reach out to some of those community organizations and make sure that the local press is covering the details of what we have. So that's the brief overview. Please be sure to vote before or on November 5th. And all that information is available on our website, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Mrs. Ivers?
Are you going to have social media graphics that we can use?
Sure, absolutely. I can share them with you, or you can actually just share them directly off the district website. Social media graphics will be everything from reminding individuals to vote, but then also having those pieces of the quick facts. So one will just say, who is impacted by this?
Okay.
What does this mean? But absolutely, all those will be available to share.
Okay, and then my second question is in the fact portion of it, is there a way to communicate what would happen if this doesn't pass?
There is a way, but there is a very fine line that we must follow,
Right.
making sure that we remain as informational as possible. Certainly looking at the facts of it being $10 million for our district in 2026, one can only imagine what that would do to our budget. There are some ways to talk about it, but again, it's that very fine line to where it can start to look like advocating if we start to veer to the idea where we might be trying to use scare tactics, some people might think.
Right, we don't want to do that.
Yes, so there are definitely some talking points that I can share, but again, just now as board members and as individuals, you obviously have a different way about how you're speaking about things, but again, as a board member, that can get a little tricky for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Heyer?
Mrs. Allen, you had on there the community has supported it since the mid-90s, and I just think it's an important point that this didn't exist before the mid-90s.
Yes.
Like, the community has really supported this since its inception.
And that's really a better way to state it. And I should say it that way because absolutely, and I actually double checked on that earlier today with Mrs. Rogers, and I said, I just want to make sure. This all started in '94. Have we been on
Right.
board since the beginning? And the answer is yes, we have.
Yes.
But that's a good point.
So it kind of, the way you said it just made it seem like maybe there was a time when the community didn't, and that's
Yeah.
not the case, obviously.
Yes, we have always, as a community, supported it with the passing of Proposal A in 1994. And that's good information to change the wording as things have not gone to the printer yet. So.
Great, thank you.
Mrs. Green?
How often do we have to vote on this again, as a reminder? How often does this come
Too
up?
often.
Now, I don't believe, and correct
Periodically.
me if I'm wrong. Okay.
It's 10? Okay.
Well, if
It
it rolls
can
back.
fluctuate if it's needed.
That's what I,
So
because
that's where that
I remember
Headley
this
comes
at one
in.
point,
Right.
and I haven't been 10
To where there
years.
could be at least every 10 years, but there is a chance that you may need to do it sooner if we haven't asked enough from that Headley.
Right, that's what I remember from a few years ago. Okay. Okay, thank you. I was just-
Yeah.
President Need?
Yes, Ms.
I-
McGinnis.
I would add that it's not a tax increase,
No, it is not,
okay,
right?
number one. Also, voter registration deadline in person, yes, but you can register in person up to 8 o'clock p.m., 7:59, in person the day of voting, okay? I just checked it on the Michigan website.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that people know that even though there is a deadline to register by mail, there is a deadline the day of the election that you still could register.
Yes.
As Steve said, and so did others, we've never not passed this. It's required by the legislation of Proposal A that was passed in 1994. And at the 11th hour, the legislature found a mathematical error in their calculation of how the how per pupil funding was going to be calculated. And it created the need for this 18 mills on the second homestead businesses, commercial, et cetera, that you spoke of. It does not impact parents of their primary resident here in the Independence Township.
Absolutely.
Well said.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much, Mrs.
much.
Allen. Look forward to our further efforts to educate the public on this. Moving on to action items, item 6.1, approval of personnel changes. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the personnel changes as listed on the attached sheets.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any questions for Mr. Lucido? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.2 is the approval of our emergency testing dates plan. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the spring testing proposals for Clarkston Junior High School, Clarkston High School, and Renaissance High School, utilizing the 15 instructional days under 21F as presented.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any questions or comments? Mr. Heyer.
We're not actually using 15 days, right?
No.
I mean, on the next page, it
right.
looks like 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah, so it has it broken all down. It's only 2 days for the seniors. I think everyone else is the 1 day. It's just different for the different buildings.
So, like, just from a motion standpoint, you know, obviously I understand the proposal. This is the second year we're doing it. Like, I would love if we would clean up the language a little bit so that, like, our agenda didn't say emergency testing days, because they're not emergency in any way, shape, or form. We're planning very far in advance so we can notify these folks. And then it's like, I mean, I didn't do the FTE calculation of all the different pieces, but it's like 3 days we're using. So I'd much rather say that than 15. I mean, this makes it seem like we're using our maximum 15 days and, you know, like we're counting 15 testing days as instructional time, and like really it's 3-ish.
That's accurate. We can change it for next year. This is going to be an annual thing. This has really helped us to streamline our testing.
Yeah, I think the concept is great. I think last year it was a little hard to wrap our heads around exactly what we were doing. It's always easier the second time around, but I don't know if we would entertain a friendly amendment to stipulate utilizing the testing days as instructional days as presented.
I think you can make a friendly
Well,
amendment.
you made the motion.
Do I have to make the friendly amendment?
All you would do is accept the friendly amendment, and Heidi can change the language.
Yes, I accept the friendly amendment.
And those the support?
Who seconded? Elizabeth?
Support.
And did you?
Well, actually, Cheryl did,
Cheryl
but I can
supported.
support that too.
And you're agreeable, Ms.
Agreed.
McGinnis? Okay.
Thanks for that clarification.
Any other questions or comments?
It's actually 4 dates that I'm looking at here.
I think we just reference that sheet. Say we're going to approve them.
As
approve the
presented.
testing days
Presented.
as
Yeah.
instructional days
Yeah.
as presented.
As presented.
On the attached sheet.
Yeah, incorporates
Take out
that
the
sheet.
15.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, seeing no further comment, the motion as amended is before you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.3, the approval of our Teaching and Learning Council as our district-wide professional development committee. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the Teaching and Learning Council, TLC, as the District Professional Development Advisory Committee as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.4 is the approval of the Playworks program agreement. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approves the Playworks program agreement in the amount of $40,000 as presented.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any questions or comments? Mr. Heyer.
I'm happy to support this as sort of an inaugural run just as we implement. I'd love data. If we're going to do this again, I'd want to do it based on some data. And so whatever, just sort of a heads up that whatever we could collect around the effectiveness and outcomes and what this looks like, I would definitely be interested in that going into next school year.
Mrs.
Love.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this because I know students, especially with special needs, can have a lot of issues with these non-structured times. And I feel like this potentially could help with that. There might be some costs. I mean, is it possible there might be some cost savings in the future of students maybe not needing a parapro during recess? Or I just wanted to get kind of a little bit more information about how this originated.
Ms. Johnson, do you want to come up to the podium, please? Ms. Johnson, Principal of North Sash Elementary.
Did you get to finish yours?
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering how this kind of got originated, the need for it, where it was, and could it potentially help kids with, I know some kids on the spectrum really struggle during these unstructured times and they need some support, and some remedies just aren't good. Some are excluding them from recess and altogether. is this going to help with this? Or I just wanted to get kind of the background of how you came up with this idea. I think it's a great idea. I'm happy to try it. I just wanted some background, I guess.
I think what you brought up was some of our rationale. We were seeing that some kids didn't really know how to engage or initiate play with other students, and other students didn't necessarily know how to respond even to an invite to play. And so this is really a facilitated opportunity so that we hope to see kids develop those skills and then generalize those out. So very much what you're speaking to is what we hope to see, that there's less sort of supervisory need for students that starts to make them stand out more in front of their peers. And so the inclusivity that we're looking for from this kind of opportunity, we hope that that's one of the outcomes. We also hope we're looking for students to be able to, in a much more democratic way, solve conflict. We have a real variety of students that have opportunities to play rec sports, and then we have students that do not. And so that creates a real imbalance on the playground when kids are coming in, they know the rules, they know how it should be, they know what it should look like, and then we have kids that are like, I've never played soccer before, but I want to, and it creates this divide between, you know, those situations. So we're hoping to, no pun intended, but level the playing field a lot at recess for our kids. And Mr. Heyer, to your point, data is what I'm all about. So we're working to be collecting it at the beginning. We have an initial assessment of using a play framework to say where we currently are right now. Then midway through in January, we hope to have some preliminary data, and then at the end, you know, we also would like to know that it was effective in the goals that we're trying to achieve. So.
Anything further? Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 6.5 is the approval of the box truck purchase for the food service program. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the Board of Education approve the quote from Peoria Ford for $80,868. We are also recommending an allowance and contingency of $5,000 to cover any additional freight costs outside of the quoted amount for a total recommendation of $85,868.
Support.
Motion made and supported. Any questions?
I'm sorry I didn't ask this in advance, but is there any way for like less than $5,000 we could just send somebody there to drive it back?
Can't answer that.
Honestly, we can check on that. I have no idea.
I mean, it just seemed like a hefty freight bill for something that would take a couple days for somebody to drive back.
I'll look into that. I don't know if it was to do with some of the equipment that had been shipped somewhere else on the truck, but that's a good question.
And that $5,000 is a contingent amount, so if it's less, obviously, we'll be spending less. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 6.6 is the approval of the change orders for the for some bond construction work at the junior high. May I have a motion, please?
I move the Board of Education approve the construction change orders for J.J. Barney in the amount of $120,590 and for Western Mechanical in the amount of $75,670 as presented.
Support.
Motion's made and supported. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And again, I do want to thank Mr. Goodman and the folks from GMB and AUK that were there for our tour before. It was very, very insightful, and it's really impressive to see the progress that's been made. And, you know, we know construction always may have its pitfalls, but it looks like we're on track to have a very successful conclusion. So thanks for all your efforts. Item 6.7 is the approval of MASB delegates. The convention is in Lansing in October. It's my suggestion that Mrs. Crane, Mrs. Love, Mrs. McGinnis, and I be designated as delegates, and Mr. Heyer and Mrs. Egan as alternates. Would anyone like to make a motion approving that recommendation?
I move that the Board of Education approve the delegates as Mr. Need stated, as delegates and alternates. Do I need to name them again?
I don't think so.
Okay. At the 2024 MASB Delegate Assembly, and submit those names electronically.
Support.
Motion is made and supported. Any questions or comments? I'm not looking at Mr. Heyer.
The only other thoughts that I had on this, because I might as well go 7 for 7, was that whoever is still in need of credits would make sense to be prioritized for delegates, because I think you get 5 credits. So I think we've done that in your recommendation, but just another factor to think about.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, in this particular case, two of our alternates already have President's Awards, so they don't really need them. So, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. I'm sure we'll have the best credentialed alternates at that conference. So. Item 7.1 is our monthly finance update. Mrs. Rogers.
Hey, this is our financial update. This will be the summer, since we haven't had an update all summer. This is Andy. We always do this every year in September. It will be all the financials through August 31st. You were given all the data for June, July, and August. And as of August 31st, 2024, for the 2024-25 fiscal year, as you can see, we've only collected local revenue, which is our tax collection, because we collect all our taxes in the summer. So for the next few months, that's all you're going to see is the local piece. The state, the federal, and district, we really don't start receiving until end of October, November, and December. So when we'll start seeing any numbers there. So at this point, we are at only 1.5%. The budget to actual, since we've been running since July 1st, we have 6.5%. Your August 31st, 2024 fund equity is at $25 million. The unaudited fund equity for June 30th, 2024 is most likely going to be just over $30 million. So if you look at your fund equity draft, it's right now following the last 2 years. So that's our pattern usually. We're just still collecting. Haven't collected enough revenue yet to cover our expenses for this school year. But any questions on any of the 3 months of data that you were given?
No. But again, even though we've only received a fraction of our revenue, our fund equity is adequate, so we don't have to borrow to pay all our bills that we have to pay.
Yeah, you only need like 9%.
Right.
We're well over that. So.
Any questions or comments for Mrs. Rogers?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There are no discussion items tonight. Item 9 is the next opportunity for citizens to address the board. There are no citizens that wish to address the board. Item 10, our next Board of Education meeting will be Monday, October 14th at 6 p.m. We'll have the workshop that was discussed previously regarding the strategic plan survey results at 6 p.m. and then our regular meeting at 7 p.m. Item 11 is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
Move to adjourn.
Support.
Motion made and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you and good evening, everybody.